Final Destination Bloodlines is the first new entry in the franchise in 14 years, and I'm very happy to report that it's another solid entry in one of the most consistent horror franchises out there. One of the most consistent horror franchises, as I said. I was looking forward to this. I've been a big fan of this franchise ever since I was a kid. I watched the first 3 so many times, and I like the 5th one a lot as well. I'm planning on making a ranking video. It's going to be really hard because I like most of them to a very similar degree. It's hard for me to pick, but I just think it's such a fun concept. The movies are very entertaining. I was looking forward to another one. It's been so long, but man, I'm shocked just how much I liked this. It might be the best one. I need to think on that a little more, and I know recency bias can be a thing, but it might be. Obviously, in Final Destination, you have the formula. There's a disaster, people avoid it, death starts picking them off one by one in freak accidents. You can't get around that. You have to do that. That's what Final Destination is. If you don't want to see the formula, then you shouldn't be here at all. I just rewatched the entire franchise over the last couple weeks, twice actually, except the 4th one. I only rewatched that once. I thought I had to do it at least a courtesy, but I wasn't going to rewatch it again. And I'm very much not tired of the formula. I'm open to many more of these movies. But this is a nice, fresh little twist on the formula. It's still there, but it does enough unique to stand out. First of all, the premonition that avoids disaster is not something that's about to happen. It happened decades ago from where our story begins. The main survivor of that disaster has now gone on to have kids, and those kids have had kids. So since she was never supposed to survive, her entire bloodline is not supposed to exist, so death is going to come for the whole family, which is so much more fucked up. And that's why we have our title. Some people were really skeptical just because of the title. It's kind of a generic horror movie title, and a lot of them that have that name aren't good. There's like Wrong Turn, Hellraiser, Pet Sematary. Is there a Tremors Bloodlines? Maybe? But you know, that's not why those movies are bad, because they're called Bloodlines. It's a very fitting title here. It references some of the stories that we've previously encountered in this series. It references the lore that we've come to know, and it adds a little bit of new information as well, including about William Bloodworth, Tony Todd's character, the mysterious coroner who's been around the entire time, and we've all been wondering what his deal was. If you had asked me, do I want to know anything more about him, I would have said no. I would have said that I want him to remain mysterious. But what they do with him here, I actually really like. Because he has since passed away, this is a really nice send-off for him. It was clear that they knew that he wouldn't be able to be in another one after this, and so it's actually really sweet. In the middle of a Final Destination movie, I'm feeling emotions. I can see some people still not liking it just because they would have rather him been mysterious, but I think they did a really good job with it, and it's not what you might be expecting. There's been a lot of theories about him for all of these years, and they didn't go the expected route. They acknowledge story beats and lore established in previous movies and carry it over without feeling like they're repeating any of it. Because you can't just keep adding new rules. You can't add a new rule every movie, because then it's just like, all right, why didn't we know this the whole time? But they carry over enough and they do it differently enough to where it works. They also sometimes keep you guessing with the order that some of the people are going to die in. There are times when you think you know, okay, this person is supposed to be next, this person might be safe, and then they switch it up in ways you don't expect. They do enough to change up the formula while sticking true to what it's supposed to be. And what are we really there for? The death scenes, and they're great. The opening disaster is one of the best in the franchise. I'll always have a soft spot for the highway pileup, just because we all drive all the time. Car crashes happen all the time, even if it's not to that extent. There's something just so great about that. There's a reason that everybody always talks about the log truck. But this is one of the best, especially if you have a fear of heights, then holy shit. But they're in a giant sky tower, and it just falls apart and explodes, and everybody falls, and it's crazy shit, and it's really well done. They really take their time, which I appreciate. Some movies in this franchise really try to rush it for just get it over with. We got to get to the deaths, whatever, checklist. This is the longest film in the franchise by a significant margin, and it doesn't feel it. It doesn't feel like it's dragging ass. It feels like it's building suspense. They're showing these characters, they're showing their relationships, They're showing all of the things that could go wrong, they're building the tension before things inevitably fall apart. And so not only is the opening disaster good, that's also the case in many of the other death scenes as well. They're pretty long, and they do the thing that I love about this franchise, where you've got like 7 different things that look like they could kill somebody, and you're just waiting to find out which one it's gonna be, and then it's none of them. It's just that thing wasn't gonna kill them, that's just a piece in the puzzle. That falls and hits something else and does something else, and then some other thing off to the side is actually the thing that kills them. I love that. The unpredictable nature. Most of these kills, if not all of them, I didn't know what was gonna happen. I didn't know how it was gonna go down, and I loved that. That was so great. Even when I really thought I did, when I thought I knew what they were doing, I didn't. They're brutal, they're goofy in the way that Final Destination, I think, should be. I like when this series has fun with itself. They're pretty ridiculous Rube Goldberg machines of death that you know aren't gonna happen to you, but it still leaves me walking out of the theater with that feeling of like, all right guys, don't walk too fast. Hold on, let's evaluate the surrounding area before we move along, just in case. I got out of the theater and this guy just like sped across the parking garage, insanely fast, for no reason. What the fuck was up with that guy? And I was like, whoa, watch it. He wasn't even anywhere near me, but still, I'm like, hold on. It just gets you thinking about all the things that could kill you. Even down to some of the small details I really liked. You know, in the other movies, you always have the small little premonitions, the small little omens. Like, in the second one, she sees pigeons, so she knows that pigeons are going to be involved in Tim's death. You don't get that here, at least not as explicitly. So it's even more mysterious exactly what's going to do it. You always have the crazy cause and effect. Some leak will spring, and then that'll do this, and that does that. But sometimes there's something that doesn't have a reasonable explanation. Like in the first one when Carter is trying to get out of his car on the train tracks and his doors just lock. Or when Evan is trying to escape his apartment in the second one and his windows just slam shut and lock. It's like there was no realistic explanation for how that would happen at all. That was clearly just death doing that intentionally, and I don't like that as much. I like it when death is more mysterious and when cause and effect seems a little bit more reasonable, and this movie handles that really well. I don't think there were any moments like that in this one. I would have to rewatch it. Maybe there were 1 or 2, I don't know, but I don't really remember any that stood out to me as being bad, and if there were very, very few. I think he did a really good job with that. It's a very funny movie. It might be the funniest one. There's one character in particular that's a lot of the comedic relief, and he's actually really likable. When you devote one character to that, there's a lot of danger there. Like Final Destination 5 tried to do it with the perverted asshole guy, and he was just obnoxious as fuck. Like that movie a lot, but ugh. But the comedy in this really works, and when you've got the death scenes, some of the ways that the puzzle pieces fall into place can be quite absurd and funny. But I think it really works, because then when you have the actual death, that is still treated seriously. I don't think the humor gets in the way of the suspense and of taking it seriously, especially since our characters are all related to each other. So they care more than any other cast of characters in this series has ever cared. It's even sadder than usual because they're all so close. And the movie takes its time establishing their relationships, and I really liked most of them, and I didn't want them to die. There's one death in this movie that is instantly among my favorites in the franchise. It was brutal, it was creative, it was funny in a way, and yet it was also sad because I really liked the character, and I didn't want them to die. I think all the actors did a really good job. They gave it their all. It can be a little silly when you have to talk about death stalking you, but they sold it. One complaint that I've heard is that it's too self-referential. There are definitely some visuals in there that are only in there because they are previous visuals from the franchise, but I didn't mind it. I actually thought it was funny, and I didn't think they overdid it. And there are even some times where they play on your expectations, where you think they're gonna reference one of the other movies, and then they don't. There was one scene where it's very intentionally framed like they're going to, and a guy in the row behind me gasped. He was like, oh, because he really thought they're about to do this thing that they did in one of the other movies. But then they didn't. But it's a good combination of goofiness with the absurdity of these death scenes that you do want to see happen. Like, that's what you're there for. Because it's fiction. You just get some enjoyment out of it. With also being sad and emotionally investing and meaner in many ways, because this is a family. I drove home from the theater like smiling. I was just so happy that the franchise was back, and the marketing has been great. I think people have been clamoring for another one of these, so I think it's going to do very well, and we won't have to wait 14 years for another one. As long as you still find ways to keep it a little bit fresh every time, yes, please, more. I was thinking about the movie all night because it was just fun, and I want to watch it again. The only issues that I had with it are the CG, unfortunately. It's not as bad as the fourth one. It's probably better than the fifth one. The fifth one had some wonky CGI here and there, but it's not great. It does take you out of it a little bit, unfortunately. I wish that had been polished up or we had more practical work. That would have been great. That really would have elevated it a lot, but everything else is so good that it's serviceable. There is a strained relationship between our main character and her mother, and I wish they had done more with that. Character relationships are not always the forefront of these movies, but this one is already longer. You're already doing a little bit more with the characters. What they do here is fine, but I feel like you had an opportunity to give us like one really emotionally charged scene between those two specifically, and I think that would have been really good. And they don't quite do that. It's enough. You get it. The relationship is established, but I feel like that one in particular had the opportunity for more. The only other thing that I could bring up, this is a nitpick, but in Final Destination 5, Tony Todd reveals that you can kill somebody and take the remaining life that they had left for yourself. And it was a bit of a question of, why did he never mention this before? But since 5 was a prequel, I honestly just assumed, okay, well, after that incident, he probably just realized that he shouldn't tell people that. That's kind of irresponsible. But in this movie, he does tell them about that. So it's like, okay, why didn't he say that in 1 and 2? The answer is obviously because the writers didn't think of it yet. And that's just how it is. It happens. You just got to deal with it. Very minor thing. I don't actually care, but I brought it up. But I loved it. It gave me the goofy death scenes that I've been craving, and it actually did a lot with the story and the characters that I didn't expect. It may very well be the best one. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Absolutely see it if you're a fan of these movies. What the hell happened with the fourth one? How did that turn out like that? Well, at least we don't have to worry about that anymore. But I think that about covers it for my opinion on Final Destination Bloodlines. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below whether you agree with me or disagree. We can talk details, spoilers, death scenes, all that stuff. Let's have discussions down there in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like. Subscribe if you want to see more from me. I will have a ranking. I might do a top 10 death scenes video too. I might not, though. I don't know yet. I don't know how that'll go with YouTube and their policies, you know, when you're just talking purely about death scenes for an entire video. But I appreciate the support. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.